know where there's some. Right here in the hall clerk.
No, Molly, not in there. I have
a Welcome back. This is the next part of the big Zenith 51 Zenith chassis we're doing, and that is the Cobramatic turntable here in front of us. Let me use this high-tech can right here, and I'll pull this up while I talk about it a bit. The Cobra, this was the first thing that Zenith introduced, was this tone arm. This Cobra tone arm came out in 1947, and it was just a huge improvement over almost all tone arms before this. The Cobramatic itself was introduced as a turntable with the Cobra tone arm in 1950, and in 53 they added a stroboscope effect to the turntable itself. This turntable's claim to fame was the Cartridge, and we'll get into that later. This infinite speed selector, all the way from off through and gradually going up to the speeds, not shifting it from 78 to 45 to 33 to 16. But you could pick any intermediate as well. They talked about that as an advantage. I'm not sure what the advantage was, but Zenith treated it as an advantage. And of course it played 7 inches up to 12. You could play 45s on this puppy if you had a 45 adapter. Let me show you why this is called the Cobra. And of course this is my speculation why it's called the Cobra, but I think it has to do with the shape of the head, which is a bit of the head of the tone arm, which is snake in appearance, and these two little eyes, one here and one on the opposite side. So I think some clever marketing guy got back home after the war and came up with this name. I don't know. Anyway, Cobramatic was part of their sales effort for quite some time. They would take out full-page ads originally on just the tone arm, and then on the entire turntable. Let's take a look at the underside. This is the underside of the radio, or the phonograph rather. I put these 3 legs in place. These screws right here, bolts, hold the springs, the mounting springs, these guys. And I just take them out and screw. This is just a piece of aluminum rod I've put threads on, 1/4-inch threads. And I need to put the 4th one on, which is right here, but first we have to get all this plastic trim off so that can happen. But it's fairly simple and straightforward, particularly compared to the Girard I did some months back. I'm still not happy with the way that works, but that took forever. This one's going to be pretty straightforward, I think. Here's the motor. That is asbestos tape around there. So that will have to be clear coated, and then I'll wrap it in aluminum tape to seal the asbestos off. I will not try to remove the asbestos. I just don't want to bother with it. I'll just encapsulate it and not worry about it. We'll take the turntable off as soon as I can get this bolt out. So let's start by taking this trim off. And the trim is held on by these 1/4-inch bolts. Here, here, and here. Might be another one I'm not seeing, but I don't think so. We'll start with those. Oh yeah, one down here. This whole thing is just fancy trim. This piece holds the the speed and record size selectors. We'll have to take those off as well. So let's start there. There's a little counterweight here. Counterweight that holds my 1/4-inch driver. This is such an improvement, particularly the toner technology over the generation prior to this. Generation prior was developed before the war. This is post-war and quite an improvement, as we'll see. So this trim piece should lift off, and there it is. Set that aside. Before you can take this one off, I have to take these knobs loose. Forgive all the racket, but this is noisy business. I've never had one of these apart before, so I'm anxious to see how that kind of infinite variable speed feature worked. I can guess, but I'd rather see it. Okay, put the screws in there and set that aside. Same thing again. Now this should slide off once I get these 3 1/4-inch bolts out. Yep, wrong tool. Oh, for those who are curious, there's apparently a model number right there. Oh, and a date. That's cool. The model number is S-14029 11251. So we know this was built for the 51 model year, which is what we've been working on. So this is probably the original turntable. So if I'm right, this should... I've already taken... Have I? Yes. There's a switch right here that screws through this too, and I've already taken those screws off. Yeah, there it comes. Nice. This is probably not brass. It's the same tone of color that's used on the receiver and does not polish up. In fact, it's so thin you can easily polish it away and get to the base metal underneath. So this may just get scrubbed and left with whatever spotty damage it has. Okay, so now the task is to get this out. And substitute it with a leg. Now I should be able to stand this up and look down on it. Like that. All right. Let me adjust this camera a bit. Well, let me show, since we're right here, I took the cartridge out of there already. Let me show you the difference. The prior generation of Zenith turntables only played 78s, as you might expect. And this is the cartridge. This is one of those old crystal cartridges. And the Cobramatic cartridge is that. Substantial difference. The weight difference has got to be like 100 to 1. It's a big chunk of pot metal in this little plastic thing with a coil and a needle, and that's about it. This particular one is a static. You can still buy A-Static still makes, I believe, a version of this cartridge. So this cartridge is replaceable. But it was pretty snazzy. It had, you can see that. It had push-on clips right here. So you just pushed it up in there. You didn't have to bolt it down like you did with this one. Anyway, it's quite the substantial difference in the art of playing records. Of course, this is not a high-fidelity, high-end turntable. It was made for multiple record speeds, and as I did in a previous video, the groove difference between a 33 1/3 RPM record and a 78, and in theory that cartridge plays both, is so huge and substantial that if you come up with an intermediate answer like that 3mm cartridge is, or needle is, you're playing 78s poorly and you're playing 33 1/3 poorly, but you can play them both. So from that perspective, not a great high fidelity instrument. Certainly not stereo. If it played a 33 1/3 or a 45, you weren't going to get stereo out of this radio because it's a monaural set. I can't remember when Zenith introduced stereo. Not too many years after this, but this particular one is mono only. So let's take the platter off and see what's lurking underneath. That should polish it nicely, I think. One thing I never did quite understand is they never put a post like they do today, some place to rest this arm. When it finished playing, it just came over here and flopped down. Very odd to me. Okay, let's see if this, I think this just lifts up. I don't see a C-ring. I don't know if it had one in the first place or not right there. Up here it comes. The flocking is pretty nice on this too, I'm happy to say. Happy to see. Okay. Right. And there's the secret. There's the secret to the infinite speed. Well, that's kind of a cool idea. What this looks like is the motor is down here. The capstan, the motor shaft, drives this disc right here. And then there's this other disc that goes at it at 90 degrees and goes anywhere along here. So you can adjust speeds kind of infinitely. That's interesting. I also see this one. I'll get a close-up of this in a minute. But this one is flat as a pancake right there. It's completely worn away. How did that happen? I mean, it's literally, you could set something on there. It's supposed to be round. Look at that. That's how flat it is. Incredible. Here's a plastic gear, and I'm happy to see it's in place. And I can tell it's going to have to be pretty much completely disassembled, and every pivot point clean. There's old grease in here that's no longer grease and hasn't been for quite some time. This is really stiff. It's a turntable. That's what turntables do, is they stiffen up. I think Larry from the hills of Tennessee turned me onto a source probably for these two rollers. It might be possible to rebuild that, but I'm not the guy to try, I don't think. And this one might not need restored. It looks pretty good. And since this one runs on this aluminum surface up here, might not be a problem. Okay, well, I think we have an idea of what we're dealing with here. So this will be a short video. I'll get busy with this, cleaning everything up, and I'll check into ordering replacements. The first thing I'll do is turn it back over and see if we have a working motor, which will mean dismounting it. I'll dismount it from here so that the bearings can be soaked if necessary, and certainly cleaned up. There's a bearing race down in here, it looks like I can see. Anyway, it just needs, like every turntable you've ever seen, needs a lot of cleaning, so we'll get started doing that. So that'll be it for this one. Short video. When I come back the next time, I'll have an update on the motor. I'll have all this cleaned up. I'll know whether I can get replacement rollers for that infinitely variable speed, worn out flat. Man, I can't imagine. Anyway, see you next time. Stay safe.